I think today, like I woke up depressed. I did.
We're not still feeling the joy of having
No,
just being out or the awe of having outsmarted our enemies. None of that anymore.
no. Like I was speaking to my friend yesterday. We had dinner and we're both mothers. We're both working moms and just, it was just harsh. It's just like it's we reflected. It was a day of a a meal of reflection of okay, what's happening, what is going to happen,
Mhm.
how do we it's just looking and thinking, what are we doing? Like, how are
You
we
had your own
surviving
you had
this?
your own personal Rosh Hashanah at a Tel Aviv restaurant.
It was the restaurant was packed, like packed people.
Really?
It was crazy. It was packed with people. And it was, yeah, but then you're like, okay, but it shows resilience. But then you're like, oh my God, but then the hostages. And then you're like, okay, but how do my kids, how do I not filter that to my kids? But then you're like, but the kids already know because of
Mm,
school. And just I think now
mm.
going forward to October 7th is the day where we all are just stopping and reflecting and just saying, wow, can you believe the past year? I mean, there's like a point where you're just like, can you believe the past year? And it's depressing. I mean, we
And
have
part
survived,
of
but
it
it's
is
depressing.
how we've domesticated it into a year that somehow was not completely insane, because if we don't do that, we just can't continue.
I think Grossman said, we don't have the privilege
Mm.
of despair. We can't. And that's a good line because we have to be resilient. And I think people don't understand like the pressure that is on us every day. Do I send my kids to school when
Mm.
there's sirens? I mean, and then I feel guilty for sending them. But if
Mm.
I don't send them because I want them near, then they're
Mm.
not going to get education. I mean, even though all they care about is staying home. Like there's a siren, we're in the miklat,
Right.
and they're like, okay, so we're not going to school
Is
tomorrow,
there a
right? And
nuclear
I'm
war
like,
now? Can we stay home?
yeah, okay. And I'm like, no, you're going, And she's like, are you sure? I mean, siren. And I'm like, yeah, we're fine. But we're just this whole like Lebanon thing. We're just like, shit, really?
I'm older than you, and I don't remember the first Lebanon war, but there is that sense of like, really, are we doing this again? I mean, not that I'm following the news in any concrete
No,
way,
but
but
but there's a sense of we must. It's
no,
also like it doesn't matter.
I totally agree with that. Totally
We
agree with
we
that.
also agree that it doesn't matter if who's in the government right now. It could be the left, it could be the right. They would both do the same thing.
I in the radio interviews that I do, very often, because I'm an English professor, so people bring me in to talk about language and the way language is misused.
Well, that's a very interesting way of attacking what's happening also. Just using, I mean, it's you
Mm,
can say a lot about bias through
mm,
language,
mm.
right? I mean, how the Nova We Shall Dance Again documentary that came out on BBC 2 days ago.
Okay.
And the only way that the BBC allowed it to
Mm.
air is if they dropped any mention of Hamas as terrorists.
Why? Why?
Because for them, that's not a given. That's not a given. And the
Yeah,
director said that's a price I'm willing to take if people will
for
watch
sure.
it. And
For
when
sure.
you watch it,
For sure.
it's evident. But just the language of them saying, no reference to Hamas being a terrorist organization
Mm.
is just, to me, it's the power of language and what language can influence. And from that influence, you can just take it, further into so many other things.
But
So
we're
that is a
not.
very interesting way to attack this. And
But
we
we're, but
should,
we're, but the problem is, I mean, we can feel despair over it and we can try to fight it, but it makes no difference. I just
that's
was
sad.
watching Andrew Marr, who's got this reputation as like this trenchant, like hard-hitting British commentator, and he said that the Israelis have created a circle of hate around them. And my colleague, our colleague, Daniel Feldman, said that people outside Israel are marinating in anti-Semitism, which I think is such a great metaphor because it just like keeps on getting into them. Like, and this is just, it is typical anti-Semitism. You blame the Jews for the anti-Semitism, which I think is what you're saying is so important. It's like we all feel Like we're not having debates in the street about this Lebanese action. We know it has to happen.
Unfortunately, it's not something that we want. It's, but I think it's that word marinating, because if you take it back 2 steps, it was simmering. Like my
Right,
right. So it was simmering and now it's marinating.
right.
And the idea also that my cousin, whose restaurant in Melbourne was closed after October 7th,
Hmm.
said that what shocked him was that it seems like they were ready for this.
Hmm.
He was like, how did they get the flyers so quickly? How did they get the,
Right.
the stickers to put on my restaurant's, walls so quickly? It was like a day after. And I was just like, wow. And there is a system, there's something systematic about what happened.
Hmm.
And he's adamant that it's Jews and not Israelis. That is, it's like blatantly against Jews. Like Israel is just maybe like something out there that just kind of legitimize it. But he was just like, no, it's Jews. They're against Jews. So it's it was simmering, and we were in denial, and
So,
now
so,
we're
so this is
reflecting about
so
this.
we're doing this series on Scarred. So this is what really this is like the energy behind that basically. That is, we are at this point. I mean, when I think of scarring, I think of the wound, and then I guess the scar is the scar the healing, or the scar is the sign of the damage.
I don't think it's about the wound. I think
Yeah.
it's the end effect of what happened.
Mm.
Like the wound is the first process, right? You get wounded, and then there's a process, either healing or whatever. For me, scarred is the aftermath,
Mm. No,
point blank.
my sense is that I mean, reflection and healing come together, but we're definitely not up to healing, right? I mean, as you were saying,
No,
we
it's
haven't even processed what has happened to us, as we're like an anthropological study waiting to happen of like what has happened to this country. I mean, it's 10,000 anthropological studies because it's affected people so differently. But we're all in trauma still, right? It's hard to write when you're in trauma.
but to me is the shift
Mm,
in who we were and
mm,
who we are now.
mm,
The scars that we're carrying are not just from,
mm,
like physical scars from the war, which there are tons of them. Like, there's tons of soldiers, walking around the streets where you see, and that
mm,
they're part of what happened there, and now they're changed. But it's also us. I mean, we look around, and all of us are different. The smiles are just, a bit dimmed. The celebration, like you said, like you were shocked when I said Shana Tova, and it's like, how, why? And I'm like, no, that's just
mm,
what we need to do. Now, is it
mm,
the same as last year? No, but it has to be. There's So the Shana Tova is different.
mm.
It's you say the same words, but it's been numerous people who I told Shana Tova this week, and they were just like, is it? And then when I said we need to just say it to
Yeah.
each other,
But
because
that's so
there's
unusual because you're the skeptic. That's
I'm
the
I,
thing
but
that's
there I woke up today, and the serious mood of everything that's happening just kind of, it's like a cloud of seriousness that just kind of was, it's like hovering, and now it's like around me, because we are at this stage. Like I said, October 7 is coming, and everyone hates us. So hey,
but
yay.
I'm thinking about how I changed from October 7th. I just remembered we were all hysterical. I mean, in our own ways. I ended up my daughter had gotten married the week before in a miklat, and I had been invited to be part of this celebration of a new book about new Jewish perspectives. I mean, unfortunately for that
How
guy,
relevant is
yeah,
that
right,
book now?
exactly. It was like, yeah, I mean, our Jewish priorities changed after October 7th, but there were a lot of famous people going to this thing, and I really felt like I should go. And I was bidding the editor put pressure on me, and I decided in the end not to go. And that was the week we put together a workshop at Bar-Ilan. And that was the beginning of writing on the wall. And I think I'm so grateful that we're doing this, because I think, again, my colleague Daniel Feldman was saying, whatever field you're in right now in Israel, if you're a Jewish person, you should be doing your best, whatever that might mean. And it might mean many, many different things, different degrees for different people. Do your best to give us a voice. And listen, I don't know what, I mean, we have been building a community. And to me, I've found personally resources of courage I never thought I had. And that comes from, I think, feeling a sense of responsibility and knowing, and growing up where I did, we're so different. I mean, I grew up in an upper class, Roslyn, Jewish, whatever, reform, whatever it was, very upwardly mobile. So for me, I never really had to face anti-Semitism of any kind. I never had to believe anything. And suddenly after October 7th, it's like, oh, you actually do believe something? That was the revelation for me. You actually do believe something. And it was that moment when I just thought, okay. And then you start to think, wow, I have all this privilege, which I think is a bad word. I think the better word is I have all these gifts, or whatever, gifts, skills, blessings, whatever. And I have a responsibility to them. And we somehow came together. And, as much as we're human, this site is not about us. And I feel just very proud about that. I mean, it's more about us now because we have a podcast, but I think it was really important for us to have our voices, to have the voices of others out there first.
I think it's also just, you asked me what changed, what has changed. I think it's my voice was canceled. I no longer have, because it's not even because of who I am, because I'm Israeli. I live in Tel Aviv. My voice is just, there's no place for it in any conversation. So everything that I write right now is not welcome, unless it's against Israel.
You're finishing the novel, or you finished the novel already?
I'm almost done, but it's hard because right now is not the time to publish anything that is Israel related, unless it's against Israel. I think bookstores just don't want that. They don't want this energy and dealing with this. And why should they, right? I mean, why have people shouting at them and boycotting them if they put Israeli writers? I mean, it's for them, it's easier to not even deal with it. I mean, it kind of reminds you of 1940s, but whatever. So, and then it just kind of goes back to, okay, so if I don't have a voice and I'm relegated to this, I'm just a Zionist, whatever that means for them, then I needed to find an outlet for me to just kind of show what's happening here and the complexities. And I think that's what writing on the wall is.
I was just going to interrupt you for a second, because I'm thinking, like, people who don't know us, it might sound like we're their lifelong right-wing people. I mean, and that's just not true. I mean, you're, whatever our credentials are, I'm the right-wing religious person, whatever. But our instincts are and continue to be liberal. And I think what's so problematic for us is we think, no, you actually not only, you should hear our voices, you need to hear our voices. Our voices are the voices you actually need to hear. You need to stop thinking in terms of political cliches. I think we feel more excluded because we think, oh, that conversation you're having, we really should be part of it because we have your skepticism. We understand your doubts. And this is what you're talking about. It's not only the complexity of the situation, it's also a certain kind of psychological complexity. It's like you're saying, everybody in the country is behind this Lebanon war. I saw Amos Oz's daughter on Twitter, Fanya, and she was saying, we're all behind this war, and we're really sorry. We don't want to hurt people. It's just like we're always coming with the apologetics, and I'm not. To me, it's implicit. Yeah, we want to go to. We were going to.
But it isn't implicit. It's you wish it was implicit, but you always have to just kind of justify something because of the discourse out there. And you do have to say it constantly because people are just not giving you any moral credit.
Mm.
No, it's that simple. Um,
Hey, so I wanted to ask you one more thing. You wrote this piece about making schnitzels, which I
I
love.
think that
Because it was kind of just like the rhythm of life, which you get with your piece. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
my birthday is on October 31st. And right after October 7th, we were all just in a disarray. None of us knew what was happening. I counted the knives in my kitchen drawer. I was sure that we're
What?
going to be annihilated. I mean, we were all really panicking here.
When you look back
Um,
on that, do you think that was
Warranted?
yeah.
Yes, I do. I do. I really, really do. I think there was chaos. I think um, the bubble just burst on us trying to be, these like liberals who want, peace and we're making strides and then it just burst. And then we were left with this feeling that they just want to kill us. Nikuda, period. That's it. But on October 31st, I went out for a drink, just kind of just say, okay.
To
And
test the
and that
waters,
was
as
like,
it were.
yeah, it
Right.
was like 3 weeks, and there was a siren, and we went downstairs to the miklat with my margarita. And I was just like, that's like an FU to Hamas. I'm still
Wait, one
living.
second,
I'm
because
okay.
you have to write something in the miklat with a margarita. That's good.
It was great. I felt like as I was doing it, I was just like, that's good. Like
How many
it's
times
just a symbol,
your
of
defiance?
yeah, it's defiance. My margarita is a defiance. So just saying, you know what? Yes, I mean, it wasn't a big celebration. It wasn't just like, and you can tell and feel in the air. People were just kind of trying to come out of their shells and just say, is it okay if I have a drink? Is it okay if I smile with what's happening? Because it was still not very clear. But I was just like, I'm fine. I'm
That's
going to be fine. We're going to be fine. And that resilience is the only thing that keeps us. People are not aware of the anxiety that we deal with every day. You asked me, how are we not happy because of Nasrallah? We're not happy because we don't know what tomorrow will bring. There
yeah,
might be missiles
totally.
from Iran tomorrow. Maybe I
Yeah,
have
exactly.
to,
No idea. No idea.
no idea. And so every day it's this constant
How
just
many times would you
anxiety
say,
inducings. You read the news and you're like, okay, so maybe tomorrow they'll attack us from Iran. Maybe tomorrow they'll attack us from Iraq. Maybe I should go buy canned goods because and it's real. It's not even in
did
our
you buy a
heads.
generator yet?
No, because they're too expensive.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. How
Yes,
many
and I,
times?
I
I mean,
hope I will not regret this.
we can always blame your husband though, right?
Yeah, he's not going to buy a generator. There's
So how
something
many?
very almost
Non,
like you give up when you buy a generator. You're like, yeah, we're doomed. I think it's a symbol of just Yom Adin. Um, so it's like
coming up.
psychologically you don't want to go there. It's like buying a gas mask. You just don't
Right,
want to go
right.
there.
You talk about how, I mean, you talk about how you walk around and see people are scarred. And a lot of what we do, and this is a lot of what we do in our workshops, is we hear other people and we encourage them to find words to describe their scars.
The idea of scarred, I think it's again, it's not just the physical scars, obviously, but it's the idea that we were forced to change,
Mm.
not because we wanted to, but because the world forced us to just think to reinvent our identity because of the marinating of like the anti-Semitism marinating it or and it was simmering before and now it's like full blown because we have no choice. So who am
Mm.
I don't know. I was very clear on October 6th. Now I'm this
Well, we're just, I mean, I think on October 8th, we were discovering parts of identities that we didn't know we had. I was feeling, which is a big switch, at least for over decades, really, really Israeli. Because when
I
I came
remember that.
Because
I
when I
remember.
came here, I came here like in the religious ultra-Orthodox system. You don't talk about the state, you talk about Eretz Israel, right? There's all the skepticism, which is not an, if you understand it pre-politically, it's not an unreasonable position. We're just we're not sure how history works, so we're going to be careful or cautious about saying that God had his hand in this. But of course, I mean, that's a reasonable position, but it's turned into something else. But that was the world I was in, this very frum religious world, which is very insulated and very smug in its evaluations. And then and I've been breaking out of that. But on October 8th, I'm like, oh, I'm Israeli.
That's so interesting because I'm secular. I'm
No, you're not, but okay.
I'm an atheist. Like I'm not even, it's just it's
Yeah. Except when you're the moral compass of writing on the wall. So except for that. But go ahead.
right, but it doesn't, but again, this whole thing, what it did is the breakdown of the identity came because I was so sure of who I was, but then I realized it's not up to me because I'm defined. I can't define myself. I have other people who don't know me, who are outside of the conflict,
Mm,
defining me
mm,
and not letting me have a voice. And I think this is why writing on the wall is about. It's about saying I'm taking ownership
mm,
and I'm just showing the complexity of what's happening. And you know what? I have a voice, and it's this disillusionment of this is not just me going through this. It's like almost everyone in Israel is going through this. Of we really were thinking that we're part of this progressive kind of cycle. I mean, we welcomed it. We were thinking, it's really like all I cared about. And then I was just like, one day, it took one day for them to just kind of kick me out and say no. And you know why? Because you're Israeli. That's it. Nikuda. Point. So so I think writing on the wall is just it's about accepting every type of voice, but just listening. Let's listen and let's try to avoid arguments. I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's okay to argue. It's okay, but the type of arguments that you hear that is overtaking, like to me, it's crazy that this place is just. I live in a country where it's taken so much attention from everyone in the world, and people are just hating each other because of this. And that's hard
Yeah, so
to
we were
comprehend.
talking before about our Scarred series, and we do have up on our site now this poem by Eve Grubin, October Words, and a sculpture by Noah Yairi. And I know we just wanted to talk about this independently or whatever, um, because you were saying this is a kind of coming attraction for the other works that we hope we'll publish.
I really want to talk about this idea of us being different now
Mhm.
and the burden that we're carrying right now. And I think people can really relate to that. They can relate to the fact that they're different, that they walk with this new identity.
Is the new identity the scar, though?
The new identity is manifestation of the scar. Yeah, that's my scar. That's what I'm carrying. I'm carrying a burden that I didn't before, where I feel like my voice has to be there. I'm a very private person, but I realize that as part of my scar or the scars that I'm carrying, I need to get my voice out there. So yes, that's my burden. And I think we also send us walking around, we need an outlet for what we're feeling. Or so what we want is we want people to engage and
Mm.
share with us so we can understand what's happening. It's again, it's been a year. We're not at the point where we can really, really reflect, but we do know that something has shifted. So
So it's
we're
not
very
only in me.
interested in understanding what that shift is personally for everyone. I mean, it's different from a soldier that came from Gaza to somebody who lives in New Jersey as a Jew and has lost friends on Facebook because he's Jewish. And it's different from me in Tel Aviv, and it's different from you in Jerusalem. Uh, with Haredi children. And so but we all
Mm.
are different. So I
I
think
think what you
this
said is
is a
so
great
interesting.
opportunity for people to explore that, who they are now. And
I,
what
I interrupted you 6 times. So I think what you said, I wanted to just emphasize that writing is not only a form of expression, it's a form of understanding. It's a form of understanding for the people who are writing, and it's a form of understanding for the people who are reading. But it's really the conveying of a perspective. And or even in the best writing is where in one voice you have many perspectives. And what we're trying to do is to get a collection of voices, which may be broken and hybrid and different, as you said, after October 7th. But when they come together, I mean, we feel it. It's meaningful.